I am in the middle of so many fantasy books right now, and that is just a recipe for disaster because that's a lot of worlds to keep straight. It's a lot of characters, it's a lot of weird names, it's a lot of creatures, it's just a lot. So I realized that I've made a mistake. So why don't we just finish all of them? I am currently in the middle of 3 books and just finished one. The one that I finished was When the Moon Hatched. I had it out on Kindle Unlimited. I definitely want to talk about it because I absolutely loved it. And then I'm in the middle of 3 more fantasy books. I love fantasy, but I am struggling right now to keep everything straight. So let's just dive on in and start reading. I kind of feel like I'm cheating by talking about this book, but I just finished When the Moon Hatched, and I actually loved it so much that I need to talk to you about it. It does fit with the theme of this video since it's a fantasy book, and I have been in the middle of it with all of the rest of these books. It's just the first one I finished. Honestly shocked, because when I picked it up in the bookstore and realized how thick this book is, I was intimidated. It's a big book, but it's on Kindle Unlimited, so I read it on my e-reader, and it took a long time to get through, I will say. I read it all over Boston on planes. I read it a little bit in California. It took a while to get through this book, especially with all my travels, but I think it was so good. I'm in the middle of so many fantasy books that I can't remember the character's name. In the beginning, she is an assassin, and we realize she doesn't remember very much about her past. There's also interspliced a lot of journal entries, and these journal entries are from Princess Elena. Basically, our big bad assassin girl who likes to kill bad guys. She runs into this man that she's immediately kind of drawn to. Our assassin ends up being captured, and she is found guilty of all of her assassination crimes and therefore is sentenced to death. Giant, kind, golden retriever of a man rescues her with his dragon, and it turns out that he is one of the 3 kings. This book has romance, it has magical kind of amnesia, it has flashbacks, it has kind of like a falling in love again aspect to it. We have a male main character who's not really morally gray, he's kind of just a golden retriever of a person, but obviously still strong and a king and a ruler. And we have dragons. I actually was looking on Goodreads and I saw a lot of people's criticism of this book saying that dragons were basically glorified Uber drivers. And I completely disagree. In my opinion, the dragons in this book are more like dogs. They're your loyal companion. They'll do anything for you. They're by your side. They're your company. They're more like pets. It's not like Fourth Wing where the dragons are speaking to you. My only wish is that we saw more of them. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. I thought it was so cute. I ended up giving this book 5 stars. I was so engrossed in it. I loved the world. The magic system in this world is kind of like elemental songs. So we have this group of gods, I think there's 5 of them, and they created the world. The Fae's magic in this book comes from these gods and being able to hear their song. Some people are nulls and can't hear any song, but some people can hear multiple, and the more songs you can hear, the more types of magic you can wield, the more value that you have in society and the higher rank you have. I liked this book. I thought it was so interesting. I'm so glad that I read it. And I was just patiently waiting for book number 2 to come out. I know that this book kind of blew up on TikTok. I have been seeing it in like every bookstore since. And if you're looking to buy it and you at least live in Canada, it's pretty cheap for how big of a book it is. I keep seeing it at Indigo everywhere for $20 with like a $20 sticker on it. Totally worth it in my opinion. I just thought it was great. I'm still outside reading and I can hear a creature scuttling around in the grass. Whenever I move, I like scare it and I'm a little nervous it's a rat, honestly. I live in the city, so it's not like a cute little animal. It's probably a rat. I ended up just devouring The Veiled Kingdom. This is actually a book that I started on the plane ride home from Disneyland. I had just loaded a bunch of fantasy books onto my Kindle, just from Kindle Unlimited. I'm pretty sure you all know about Kindle Unlimited by now, but it's just a subscription service on your Kindle. You get access to, I think it's like 800,000 titles, they say. I will say it's different country by country because so many recommendations I see for books are not on Kindle Unlimited in Canada. It's like $10 a month. It's worth it for me because I read so much, just putting it out there. It's not an ad at all, but I use it a lot. Everything I read on my Kindle comes from Kindle Unlimited typically. The Veiled Kingdom is by Holly Renee, and we are following a princess who has escaped her castle. She is the heir to the kingdom, but we find out that she doesn't have magic, and she is the only fae in the history of ever that doesn't have magic, and her father is ashamed of her, so he has kept her hidden away like a Disney villain, locking the princess in a tower so people don't realize that she's been missing for a year, and her father has been hunting for her. There is a resistance that is an underground, literally, group of people who are trying to fight against the king. The princess ends up being caught for crimes and is brought in to a dungeon where she befriends another young woman, and it turns out that that young woman's father is the head of the resistance. So she ends up being captured and insists that the princess comes with her. The princess is pretending she's not a princess. She's just giving herself her mother's name actually, and pretending that she is just a random person. So we have a bit of like a hidden identity trope happening. It's an enemies to lovers trope, but I will say, I've said this before, I'll say it again, for me, enemies to lovers, you need to really establish that they're enemies. These guys had chemistry right off the bat. Also, it's a bit of a forbidden romance. And I'm gonna say this book is heavy on the romance. First, my thoughts on this book. I give it 3 stars. I do not give half stars, but for some reason, this book is calling me to give it a half star, to give it 3.5 stars. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, I think that maybe the book could have used a better editor. There was a few parts that felt very redundant and very repetitive and unnecessary. This book got spicy, and I was not anticipating it. So if you like a fantasy book that's like heavy on the spice in the last like quarter, this is just heavy on the spice. And if you've read this book, the last chapter gave me the ick. There was something about it. That ending gave me a big ick. It felt like someone was taking advantage of someone. If you've read it, you know. I'm trying not to give spoilers, but I did not like the ending. So 3.5 stars. I did devour it though. I read that book so fast. Wow. I am going to sit outside and read. I'm currently reading House of Light and Ether. It's the 3rd book in this series. I'm 35% done. Honestly, I'm not enjoying it. But I've made it this far into the series that I just need to know what happens. So I'm going to power through it, but I'm probably gonna just skim read it. There's something about the writing that feels worse, lower quality, lower caliber. I don't know, it feels worse than the other book. Feels like a bit of a step down. I liked the first one. The first book in the series gave me the Summer I Turned Pretty vibes, but make it fantasy. This is just not doing it anymore. It feels rushed. It feels very immature. The writing, the way that the characters are speaking. I do remember that one of my issues with the other books was specifically the way that her familiar, like her crow familiar, spoke. It just didn't feel natural. It felt very immature. It felt like he was a teenager talking, and that's the vibe I'm getting from everyone. Is everyone has the exact same like kind of tone and way of speaking, and it just doesn't feel appropriate. Like the queen shouldn't talk the same as a 16-year-old, you know. It just doesn't work for me. My goal is to finish it during this nap. I have coffee, I have pop. I'm gonna try to get in my hammock, but it feels a little wet, so we'll see. But the goal is just to power through this and just be done with it. Past the halfway mark, we're at 57%, and it is not getting any better. If anything, it's getting worse, and I am wondering if this is going to be my first 1-star read of the year. Example of how weird this book is writing wise, this sentence. Then I was super butthurt after, and I got confused. That's a prince saying that he got butt hurt. Sorry, what? Like, guys, this might be a 1 star. I finished it. Oh, okay. We're just not even gonna talk about it, and gonna dive into another book that I'm in the middle of. I'm not far in. Powerless. I know people like this one. It is also YA, it's fantasy. I am going to talk more about The House of Light and Ether when my vlogging camera comes, my new one, because this is obviously phone footage. Dirty nails. This is obviously phone footage. Okay, let's hope this is better. I'm sitting here reading Powerless. I'm currently 130 pages in and out of about 500 pages. So I still have a lot to go, but I thought that I would talk about The House of Light and Ether, which is the final book in the, I think it's called the Gilded City trilogy. Guys, that was my first 1 star read in probably a year. I think last year I also gave one book 1 star. So if you haven't seen any of my other videos where I've read the other books in the series, it's about a teenage girl. She has a curse. She can't be touched. She lives outside the Gilded City with her adopted father. She ends up being found by the Gilded City army guys. They realize who she is, that she's this missing girl that they've been searching for, whose mother is an extreme bad guy. She is forced to move to the Gilded City. She starts school there. Then basically the entire plot is about trying to defeat her mother, the ultimate bad girl. It was dreadful. I am so disappointed with where the series ended up going, and that last book felt like completely pointless. If you've read it, then you know that there's kind of like it's almost like the Triwizard Tournament in Harry Potter. There is randomly, for a third of the last book, another school, and this other school is full of rival bad kids, and they're competing for money. It was completely pointless. The writing felt even worse in this book. This was a series that I found the writing extremely juvenile. It's YA, but the writing just felt so immature and like a teenager wrote it, not like it was written for teenagers. I feel like the climax and like the resolution of the 3 books, because there was this one ongoing plot that we're dealing with in all 3 books. I feel like it was resolved too quickly, and like everything that came before it, the training, all of these things just were pointless in the end with how the story was resolved. And I think there wasn't enough conflict, there wasn't enough suspense. Everything was resolved in general in the book so quickly. If there was a disagreement, the next page it's over. And I think I'm really frustrated because I loved the first book in this series so much. I thought it was like The Summer I Turned Pretty, but make it fairies. I thought that I could foresee a few really cool twists and turns coming, like with her father being magicless, and like why? Like that could have been like a really fun reveal and stuff, especially once we find out in the second book about Powerless Fae and like where they're coming from. There's no big reveal about her dad, and it just felt like there was a lot of missed opportunities for the book to be a really good book. And I think that's why I'm frustrated. The first book in the series I gave 4 stars. The second book I gave 3 stars, and this one I gave 1 star. I hate when that happens. I hate when a series starts out strong for me and then slowly but surely I start hating it. I am just having one of these days where nothing is going well. We will blame the 1 star read yesterday, but just everything is off. Mostly like I've been working all day and it's 2 p.m. and I had childcare this morning and I got nothing done. Technology is not on my side these days. I just got a new camera today. This is it. Because when I was in Disneyland a week and a bit ago, my camera just stopped working. So I'm really mad about it. I had to spend $1,000 on the new camera, which is never ideal. I get home and now my desktop isn't working. I have like a big iMac that I do all of my video and photo editing on for not just this, but Ali and Sam, which is like the more important thing because that is my job. And my computer has just shut off 3 times today with no warning and taken each time like half an hour to turn back on. And with that, it is just deleting everything. Like I will be editing a video and then it says when the computer turns back on that I haven't touched the video since Friday and it's Monday. And I haven't. So I'm just not having a good day. All I want to do is curl up on the couch and read Powerless, honestly. So maybe we will read a bit of that. Powerless is a YA fantasy. It's about a girl who is just that. She's powerless in this world where every single person has magic, I think. I'm also a little confused because in the Veiled Kingdom, there was a girl that was powerless and didn't have magic and she was the only one in the entire kingdom. I'm gonna start confusing the two. This is why I need to finish all these fantasy books, because you cannot read this many fantasy books at one time. It's just not allowed. If you're wondering what I'm making while we talk, it's a dirty soda. So I'm gonna mix coffee creamer and pop. So this powerless girl in Powerless, she ends up saving a prince's life and then gets roped into doing these things called the trials, which is a competition. I think you can die in them, but I don't think it's like the Hunger Games where only one person survives. But she's forced to compete in these trials. If they find out that she doesn't have magic, I think they're gonna like her. Again, I don't really know what's going on because I'm reading too many books at once, so it's my own fault. I could be wrong. So she has to fake it till she makes it and hopes that nobody figures out that she doesn't have magic. Kind of setting it up to be like an enemies to lovers type thing, but it's more like rivals to lovers maybe. I don't really think that her and the prince are enemies in my opinion. I feel like that's what she's gonna fall for. We all know it. But for an enemies to lovers to be done really well, in my opinion, you need to really establish that these people. It's a good book, but I've been reading it since before I left for Boston. So a few weeks, and taking me a while to get into. I'm also choosing to read it last out of these 4 fantasy books, so that obviously is showing that I'm not super into it, but I keep seeing it everywhere. Everybody is talking about this book and the little novella that goes with it, Powerful, I think. Also, wait, this is a book, guys. Powerless is the book that I kept saying was a standalone fantasy book, and I was so excited because all fantasies are part of huge universes, and it turns out that this is actually a trilogy with novellas in between. So I was very wrong. Thank you to whoever corrected me. It's like coffee but with pop. Have any of you tried this? I think I've made this before and you guys have seen, right? Caramel almond coffee creamer, Pepsi, and what's the other thing I added? Oh, a shot of lime juice. Delicious. So the bad boy prince in this is named Kai, K-A-I, and I want to tell you that that was one of my top name picks for my twins. I have 20-month-old twin boys. I really wanted to name them Kai and Beau, B-E-A-U. I just thought like cute little short names like that, Kai, Beau. Like 1-syllable names would have been so cute, but I could not convince my wife. I don't show my kids' faces on the internet, and I also don't share too many identifying things about them, like their names or their birthdays or things on the internet, just to give them some privacy because they don't choose to share their life online. I choose to share mine, but kids can't consent. There's a number of reasons, but I will tell you that sadly, neither of them is named Kai. There's a name in this. The girl's name's Peyton. Okay, this is a confession that I can't believe I'm making, but when I was younger, I wanted to have 4 kids and I wanted to name them rhyming names. I wanted to name them Hayden, Peyton, Layton, like Layden, and Drayton was my 3rd or 4th choice. Are those not horrible names? No offense if your name is one of those names, but the group of them together, rhyming, that's not good. I was a teenager, thought it was so clever. Like the Kardashians, how they all have K's, or in Bridgerton, how they're named in alphabetical order. Mine was apparently going to be rhyming names. No. It's been a few days since we talked. I've just been picking away at Powerless, but last night I finished it. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I found it enjoyable. It did give me pretty strong Hunger Games vibes. And looking back, I actually don't see what the point was of the trials, because you're just showing that you're really strong, but by killing each other, which in a society where they like highly prioritize people with really strong powers, it feels weird that they would like pit them against each other and have them kill each other and not like use those powers for like something societal. I don't know, just felt a little weird. And I will also say the love triangle was pretty pointless. Felt like it didn't really add anything to the story, and I feel like she could have just been friends with him and they had like a good friendship bond instead of like this weird love triangle that it was kind of pushing. I don't know if maybe that's gonna have something to do in like a future story because this is a trilogy. I do like Peyton, the main character in this book. I found she was really likable. I liked Kai too, the male main character. I mean, it was a good book. I enjoyed it. I will probably pick up the next book in the series. I don't think I'm interested in the novella that's in between because it doesn't follow these characters. It follows like her best friend. So I'm not sure if I'm super into that. We'll see. The thing that kept this from being a 5-star for me was that it felt like this has been done before. A lot of the elements in the story felt like they'd kind of been done before with Throne of Glass, with Hunger Games. It just, I don't know, it just felt a little similar to other things that I read. I feel like it'd be really negative. It wasn't a bad book. I enjoyed it. I just don't think that it's one that's super gonna stick with me. This wasn't a bad book. I did enjoy it. There were a few lines that Kai had that I felt were really romantic. I love a strong female main character. I'm here for it. Honestly, the whole reason that I'm just finding little things that I'm like, oh, is probably just that this book has been so hyped up in my mind because it feels like everybody talks about it. It was good. I would recommend reading it. I would not say don't read this like I would say some other books in this video. It was good. Probably my second favorite of the 4 books that I read in this video. I will say it's also YA, so there's no spice in this book. So if you don't like sexy scenes in your books, this is a good book for that because there is no spice in it at all. The Gilded City trilogy that I read also isn't spicy at all, so if that's something that you really like in a book, I know that I kind of said the ending was horrible and I hated the last book. I did like the first book. I will stand by that. I thought it was a good book, but there is no spice at all in that series, so keep that in mind too, because maybe you're looking for something that's not spicy and maybe that does sound good to you. I will say it feels like almost every fantasy book these days is super spicy, and I am not someone that like reads books for the spice, especially because I'm a lesbian and this is like always female male spice. I'm still on the hunt for some LGBTQ plus, like specifically lesbian fantasy books. I do have a couple actually. We will not be reading this in today's video. This is the end of the video. I did just pick up Malice, which is a lesbian queer retelling of Sleeping Beauty told from the villain's point of view, and the princess and the sorceress I think have a little thing. I know it's a lesbian book. I think that it's spicy. And then I also got a couple books out on my Kindle. I think I'm gonna do a reading lesbian fantasy video. I love fantasy and I'm sure that there's lots of really good lesbian fantasy books out there. I feel like they're just not as mainstream, they're not as like pushed. The way that books with straight couples are just constantly everywhere, I feel like maybe I'm gonna have to just do some research and like give a bunch of books a try because I never see anybody read lesbian fantasy. So I'm just gonna give a whole bunch of books a try and find what's good because I'm struggling to find good recommendations besides what you guys give me. Welcome to my very messy kitchen. I was just about to do some cleaning. I just got the twins down for a nap and I thought that I would end the video here. I really enjoyed this. I can't believe that I got myself into a situation though where I was reading 4 fantasy books at one time because that was overwhelming and it was very hard to keep all the details straight. I would not recommend having that many fantasy books on the go at one time. I don't even know how I did it. I don't know why I kept just starting new books, but here we are. They're all done. I officially don't have any books on the go, so I can look at my TBR and decide what I want to read next. I'm so excited to do that. After finishing all of these books, I stand by the fact that I said that When the Moon Hatched was actually so good. I loved it, especially comparatively to everything else that I read. It was really good. Did I give it 5 stars or did I give it 4? Because now looking back, I might move it up to a 5-star read because comparatively to all the other fantasy books I've been reading, it was so good. And I also stand by Light and Ether being a 1-star. I can't believe that I found a 1-star read. I have not read a 1-star read since last spring. I'm being so negative. Oh, okay. Well, we will leave today's video here. I hope that you enjoyed this. I love reading fantasy, so this was fun for me, and I will be back with another video soon. I know it's Pride Month, and I wish that this video was gay. I wanted to finish all of these books before starting some new queer books, but I can say that hopefully for Pride Month, I do have 2 LGBTQ+ themed reading videos coming out, so stay tuned for those. And there's some more fun stuff too. I actually have a whole list of video ideas. I think I have 10 video ideas planned, so I'm really excited. I'm feeling really inspired to read and create reading videos, which is nice because I've been in a bit of a book slump. So here we go. I'm obviously out of it. I just read all of those books. We'll be back really soon with another reading video. I'll be back really soon with another reading video, and I will see you then, my lovely book buddies.